protest songs. They protested their present living conditions while seemingly singing about some future abode. They sang, I got shoes, in a culture where they had no shoes. And they put themselves on the same plane as white slaveholders when they sang, all God's children got shoes. We are all God's children, white, black, African, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Chinese, coolies. They couched the language in a spiritual frame by saying, when I get to heaven, I'm going to put on my shoes. But they described an activity. They were subversive. They described a subversive activity, an unheard of activity, walking anywhere they wanted to. Walk all over God's heaven. In a climate and culture where they could only walk, move, live, or be in certain proscribed areas. In the South, like in pre-Castro Cuba, in the South, a black had to get off the sidewalk and step into the gutter, no matter what was in that gutter, to let a white man, woman, boy, or girl walk by. They couldn't even be on the same sidewalk with a white person. Their existential hell had them barred from certain areas, but their eschatological hope put them in a place where no holes were barred, and they spoke the word or sang the word to speak into existence a proleptic protest about their proscribed existence. When I get to heaven, which is up north, when I get to heaven, which is out of this hell, when I get to heaven, which is the opposite of what I'm living in now, when I get to heaven, which is out of slavery, I'm going to put on my shoes and I'm going to walk all over God's heaven. A racist man is in charge of this hell where I live, but a righteous God is in charge of the place I'm going to. This is God's heaven. I'm going to walk all over God's heaven. Heaven, heaven! Everybody talking about heaven. Some white folk pretending to have faith, and some black folk pretending to be black. Everybody talking about heaven ain't going there. The word, spoken word, sung word, words of African has far more meaning, many more meanings, and far deeper meanings, much deeper than the meanings that the untutored eye, the untutored ear could ever comprehend. Religion was one such word for Africans. Religion for Europeans was religiosity. Religion for the Africans was a relationship. It was not something you did on Sunday, holding your Bible and your prayer book on Sunday morning while holding your slaves and your concubines from Sunday night to next Saturday night. Religion for the African was not that. Religion, I ain't going to lay my religion down. Religion had a meaning of a relationship that helped you to hold on in the midst of your hell. That's why they refused to lay their religion down. Their religion gave them what Paul talks about in this passage. 3 quick things, and in the words of my young sons in the ministry, we're going to raise up out of here. Paul teaches us 3 things in his written word about trouble. The same 3 things the Africans teach us with their song, their sung word. The first thing Paul teaches us is about perspective. Say perspective. We have this treasure in earthen vessels. Perspective. Keep things in perspective. We ain't nothing but dirt. Made of earth, common clay pots. Eugene Peterson says, we carry this message around in the unadorned clay pots of our ordinary lives. That is to keep anybody, Eugene says, or to prevent anyone from confusing God's incomparable power with us. First thing Paul teaches us about his perspective. In other words, earthen vessels, common clay pots means, let me translate it for you. It ain't about us. Now your neighbor is not going to like this, because some of your neighbors think that they are all that and the whole Frito-Lay ensemble. But I want you to turn to your neighbor right now. Tell your neighbor, it ain't about us. Look at him again. Say, it ain't about you. It ain't about me. It ain't about us. Yeah, we got trouble, but we ain't tripping because it ain't about us. Keep it in perspective. The second thing Paul teaches us is about power. My religion, the Africans say, is about my relationship with the one who's got all the power. Number 1, it ain't about us. Number 2, say this, it ain't up to us. It does not depend on our power. This whole gospel rests on the power of God. Don't confuse God's incomparable power with us. It ain't up to us. But then number 3, Paul not only teaches about perspective, and Paul not only teaches us about power, Paul also teaches us about presence, what you can't see. That's how he ends this 4th chapter. We stopped reading the 4th chapter, verse 9, for that little short, powerful passage. Read down to the end of the chapter, because at the end of the chapter he says, now, don't look at the things you can see, because the things you can see are temporary. They pass away. But keep your eyes on the things that are unseen, because the things that are seen are temporal, but the things that you can't see are eternal. What you can't see is him who is eternal, and that's his presence. You see the trouble on every hand. You see the things that perplex us. You see the persecution, and you see the things that knock us down. But what you can't see is the hand of him who picks us up every time we get knocked down. What you can't see is the eternal presence of him who is able to keep us from falling. What you can see is the one right now who's standing here with me. I'm in his presence. Look at me. I'm a testimony. I'm not standing on my own. I didn't get here all by myself. I ain't standing here alone. It was what you can see is the one who reminds me that trouble don't last always. What you can see is the one who hides me in the time of trouble. What you can see is the presence of him who is my light and my salvation. The presence of him who is eternal. The presence of him who is my shepherd, who is my rock, who is my fortress, who is my shield, who is my everlasting portion. You can't see my religion keeps me in his presence 24/7 so that trouble may be all around me, but I got the presence of the one who can troubleshoot and solve my problems. Any problem that life sends my way. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. Though a host should encamp against me, yet will not my heart fear. The war should rise up round about me. In this will I be confident. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord in his presence, and to inquire in his temple, for in the time of trouble he shall hide me. Stand to your feet. Doors of the church are open. The Lord, as the deacons come into the aisles, those of you who know the song, sing along with the choir. And my salvation. Turn back to your neighbor. You've been talking to your neighbor. You told your neighbor it's not about us. Now I want you to ask your neighbor, do you have a church home? Do you have a personal relationship with the Lord of the church? If they say no, say, come on. This is your day. This is your time. I'll take you over here to a deacon right in the aisle. There's a deacon in every aisle. And my salvation and my whom shall I fear? Lord is my life and my somebody down this aisle. I want to encourage them. Whom shall I? Somebody else, are you here? Whom shall I fear? God bless you, young man.